Have that dump button ready, because I honestly have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth.
Get ready for takeoff.
There is no way that I'm tapping out now.
You're listening to Unkillable.
If you didn't kill us last night, we are unkillable.
Hosted by Brandon Tierney.
What's going on, everybody? Episode number 29 of Unkillable. All right, so we inch toward the draft, but you know, they wouldn't be the Jets if there wasn't a little something that just kind of got in the way, a little interference, just a little something that keeps it from steamrolling down the track smoothly. It's been a very quiet offseason until, of course, today. And I don't really blame the Jets for this, but this Aaron Rodgers situation with McAfee, very interesting. Now, I'm a Rodgers supporter. You guys know that. You follow the pod. You listen to me on WFAN. I wanted to bring him back, provided that Muji and Aaron Glenn wanted to bring him back. I was not of the mindset he's got to go. You know, there's no way you can move forward with a new regime and Aaron Rodgers still in the building. He's going to, usurp their power and just compromise their ability to lead and establish this new foundation. I never thought that, because I think, quite frankly, for a long time, Aaron Rodgers has gotten a bad rap. Yeah, he's definitely a little slippery in terms of how he delivers stuff for, I guess, to kind of, I don't want to say to make himself look better, but, well, I guess in essence to make himself look better, to enhance his position, however you want to frame it. This was interesting, and this happened right at the end of our show today. Me and Sal only had about 15, 20 minutes, not even, to really get into this. So let me just see if this is what I'm supposed to believe, all right? I know what Aaron Rodgers said, and Aaron Rodgers believes that, I would imagine. But am I supposed to believe that Aaron Rodgers flew across the country and within 20 seconds was completely disrespected by the Jets? Because if that's the case, I don't believe that. I don't buy that. Now, is there an absence of nuance here? Is this Rodgers, framing it his way as he delivers it on McAfee? Very well, maybe. The Jets owed Aaron Rodgers, at least this regime, absolutely nothing. You want to tell me that they owed him maybe more respect there, if that's the way that it went down? Oh yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think that that's a good look to do that to anybody, because now you think about this, guys, you try to change the culture and the way the Jets are viewed and the way they're perceived. And if they were to do this, whether it's to a future Hall of Famer or even, the third tight end, I think there's a certain way to comport yourself as a business if you want to eventually be thought of as a first-class organization, which the Jets are clearly striving to become. I don't know, man. I just want to move on from the Rodgers stuff, and I'm prepared to do that. But, dissecting this as I did briefly on the air today, and obviously the rest of the day, I'm sorry. I can't wrap my mind around Aaron Glenn and Muji, but it seems like the bigger issue from Rodgers' position is that, is with Aaron Glenn. Are you telling me that Aaron Glenn purposely tried to embarrass or disrespect Aaron Rodgers? I don't understand that. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers was expecting the old Jet approach where they kiss his ass and they basically let him do whatever he wants and they give him whatever he asked for, and whatever he needs, they acquiesce. Well, if that was the expectation and it was less than that, which clearly it needs to be or needed to be and should be, well, then I could see why Aaron Rodgers is a little bit turned off here. But I don't know, man. It's just, it's very, very bizarre the way that this was presented here. I know he flew on his own dime. I think if the Jets wanted to do it that way and be callous and very matter of fact and very blunt and very quick in moving on from Aaron Rodgers, you could have done this via Zoom. All right. I'm in my home office. I'm staring into my laptop and I'm communicating to thousands and eventually tens and hundreds of thousands of people. Like, that's the way you do it. You can't tell me that the Jets couldn't have done this via the computer. Use the technology, look somebody in the eye, have a big boy conversation and come to whatever common ground you needed to come to. I would imagine that they would have been amenable to that. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to, and this is where I think that Aaron frames it for his own benefit, with all due respect to Aaron. I think that maybe the Jets wanted to get in the room with him and wanted to bypass the digital correspondence here, right? And they wanted to look into his eyes, and they wanted to really try to read body language and get a sense if this guy was really serious about playing football. And maybe, and listen, I don't know if it's either a lack of self-awareness on the part of Rodgers or just the inability to step out of your own existence and look at you the way others see you. But maybe Aaron Rodgers was not exactly convincing that he was on board. I don't know. I think that I would think that the Jets probably went into this. I don't want to say predetermined or predisposed to move on from him, but they probably were strongly leaning in that direction. And maybe they were leaving the door slightly ajar for Aaron to convince them otherwise if they felt that the sell was believable and the conviction was real and the buy-in was real. But I don't know. I think the one thing that I can certainly get on the Jets, no matter what happened here, is if I have Aaron Rodgers in the building, and I just got to the building, a building that has been in utter shambles for, well over a decade and a half at this point, with the extended playoff drought, the longest, how many times have you heard me say this? The longest North American team playoff drought in sports, encompassing all the sports. Yeah, that's us. Right? Yay. That's the Jets. We're good at that. But we're moving forward, and we're moving forward with a clear vision, a leadership, a no-nonsense, no BS attitude, and I love that. Aaron Glenn is beholden to nobody but his own football morals, Muji, and obviously ownership, and the guys that he, whether it's on tape or whether it's through communication or both, that he believes are assets to the Jets moving forward. However, let's just say that there was slight embellishment on the part of Aaron Rodgers, right? Not as bad as he made it seem, but somewhere in between. Like it was, all right, maybe a little short on the Jets end and not nearly as bad as he positions it. Where I could criticize the Jets, if I am Aaron Glenn, if I am Muji, and I've got him in my building, why wouldn't you get as much information out of him as humanly possible about the guys on the roster that, I don't know, you're about to make big money decisions on? Hey, Aaron, hey, listen, what's your real opinion of Garrett Wilson? What's your real opinion of Sauce? What's your real opinion of this? What's your opinion of that? What's your opinion of the building, of the operation, of the way we do things? Like, I don't know why that wouldn't be done, because there's a chance there to glean potentially some interesting information. And now at that point, you get that information, and the onus is on the new Jet leadership to cut through the nonsense and go with their instincts and, determine what is applicable and what they really believe Aaron says. And they maybe want some sour grapes, whatever it might be. But that's on them. And it doesn't seem like they did that. Now, again, back to the root of this. Let's just do a little role play right here. Hey, Ev, pop on, buddy. Where's my guy, Ev? Where's Ev? I know he's fired up for the draft. I can't wait for the draft, by the way. I'm so pumped for the draft. All right. So Ev, you're going to be Aaron Rodgers. Okay? You're going to be Aaron. I'm going to be Aaron Glenn. Now, the way the story, and I didn't know this when I was on the air in real time, but I found that apparently it was just Aaron Glenn and Rodgers. I thought it was Glenn and Muji. And then very quickly, according to Rodgers, into this interaction, he went and he got Muji and he came back and that was done. All right. So do you really, and we'll do a little role play, but before you answer the question, everybody watching, do you think that it actually, just common sense, let that prevail for a moment. Do you think that it actually went down this way? Hey, Aaron, come on in, man. Good to see you. Get up, shake hands like a man, look him in the eye. How you doing, Aaron? Hey, listen, great career, man. A lot of respect, dude. I've been watching you for a long time. And you're one of the best to ever sling it. Sit down, man. Let's get to know each other a little bit here. So where are you at, buddy? Where are you at? Where's your mind at? I know it's been a tough run here, and we're new and we're starting over, and we just want to get a sense of where you're at. Do you want to play football this year?
Yeah, I mean, I was considering playing football for the right situation and the right staff, so that's why I came to New Jersey all the way from where I'm staying at to come see you guys.
All right, hold on a second. Let me go get Muji. I'll be right back. I leave the room, I get Muji, and then in 20 seconds, we resume the conversation. You know what, Aaron? How would you like us to proceed and let the public know that we're going to move on from you? Does anybody think that that's really, truly the way it went down? Even at the highest levels of dysfunction, not this group, all the previous regimes prior to Muji and Glenn, does anybody with more than a brain cell think that that's actually the way it went down? Do you think that it went down that way?
No.
There's no way it went down that way. Come on, man. So this is where you've got to filter through the Aaron Rodgers bullshit and the Aaron Rodgers nonsense and the Aaron Rodgers drama. And again, Evan, you know this, and my entire WFAN audience knows this. I have always been a Rodgers believer, supporter, and defender. Not blindly. Some of the stuff he's done, he's been a little slippery, a little vague, a little intentionally vague, or throwing people off scent. And I've called him out on that. But in totality, Rodgers has been a great player. By all accounts, he was a good teammate. Everybody that played with him, outside of a few malcontents, tell us that he was a good teammate. But I do think that this is where Aaron Rodgers kind of, I don't know if I'd say gets himself in trouble, but allows others to shape a less than favorable narrative about whether how self-absorbed he is or how he views himself, specific to the team, above the team. I just can't imagine on any planet, even the Jets with Kotite, even the Jets with the mess that was here before these two guys got here. There is no way it went down like that. No way. I'm not buying it for a second. Now, the next thing is, and here's what I think the Jets need to do in response to this story. Not a damn thing. Because guess what? It's going to go away. We know the way the news cycle works now. Click, 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 click. Next story. Oh, Juan Soto's horrendous. Met fans going nuts today. Click, 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 click. Then he's going to go 8 for 16 at one point with 3 doubles, 2 bombs, 9 ribbies, and an OPS of 1,300. Win the player of the week. Juan Soto's the best. Like, we just jump from topic to topic. Like, if the Knicks don't beat the Pistons, Tom Thibodeau's got to get fired. If they do, they're ready to beat the Celtics. Like, clickety-click, click, clickety-clack, click, click. So the Jets need to be smart enough to know this, and I think the worst thing that they could do, the most unprofessional thing that they can do, the most unproductive thing that they could do is to pump an ounce of oxygen into this story. Don't say a word.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because it's one of those situations where it's like, one, like many people have framed it online, even if they went in with the slight, like maybe, 51%, we get rid of him, 49%, we keep him. You can't imagine that they just go into the room and they let him talk for 2 seconds, and then for whatever reason, Aaron Glenn gets up, runs out of the room to get Muji as if it's like a fire drill, and then comes back and is like, hey, by the way, we're getting rid of you. It's like, why wouldn't you just say that on the phone? Or why wouldn't you just say that, like, hey, Aaron, it's nice to meet you. We really wanted to talk things over. Like you said, maybe get some perspectives. That would be very valuable. But then also talk through it and see like where he stands on the current situation. It would be crazy to just be like, hey, man, we flew you all the way here, apparently on your own dime.
Yeah, that's odd.
At the same time, we also want nothing to do with you, and we just want to tell you to your face that you stink and we want to get rid of you. Like, it just
basically, exactly. That's why I hope common sense prevails. I do think that while there's going to be a learning curve for Muji and Aaron Glenn, and we'll see how they do in their first draft, and we'll definitely drop a pod early next week and crush the draft. Maybe 2 pods, by the way, a guest and then just straight me. But I think that there'll be a learning curve here, like the first little fire they've got to put out, whether it's and Sauce and Garrett Wilson appear all in. They showed up to the offseason stuff without a contract, which is a nice leap of faith. Those are the kind of players and young men that you reinvest in. You don't kick them out of the building. You keep them there as long as you can. But there's going to be a fire, an unhappy player, an injury, maybe a press conference where Aaron says something and it gets away from him. He's a first-year head coach, all right? And Muji's a first-year GM. There's no blueprint, no matter how smart you are, especially with the New York media, where you can just read a little manual, head coaching or dealing with the New York media for dummies 101 and not have a single misstep. It's going to happen, all right? But there is no way that I don't choose to believe, nor do I just completely reject the notion that these men have such an axe to grind and are so out to embarrass Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, didn't do a damn thing to them. Now, I do agree, as you positioned it, that there is a slight lean. I would say more than slight. You say 51% moving on. I'd say probably 85-15, 90-10. They knew very strongly, unless he gave you the most compelling, convincing argument, or they watched the last 8 or 9 games of film and they're like, okay, but which, by the way, I thought was pretty good, but they have different, evaluation because they're real football people. So they would not, they're not doing that. I do not believe that at all. However, let's say Robert Saleh did not get fired last year. Joe Douglas did not get fired. They were brought back and they had a shit season again, but there was contention in the air. Remember when, I think it was the Patriots game, when Saleh went bonkers, like, yeah, and like Rodgers shoved him, like, dude, get off me. And that was very interesting to interpret, because one school of thought was, I don't respect you, get away from me. Then, and I went there a little bit. The other might be, dude, I mean, we got a long way to go. The Patriots suck. Act like you've been there before. Let's kind of let's raise the ceiling a few inches and not just act like we won the Super Bowl. And maybe the answer is somewhere in between. We don't really know. But say if there was a little discord with Saleh, and Saleh was brought back, and Joe Douglas as well, and they had an axe to grind, and it was personal, and they had no intentions, 0.0, meaning 100, already leaning, they're moving on from him. This still would be a very petty, unprofessional move. But if they were to do that, fly him out, like say if he was talking smack on Rodgers, they're like, you know what? Woody Johnson, what he said about his son, I don't want to get fired by my son, by a teenager. I think he said whatever the quote was. Then, and again, it would still be the wrong move for a professional franchise, but at least I could give a little credence to egos being bruised and, guys being pissed off. And then this is how they channel it. Wrong move, not the right direction. But I can at least understand where they wanted to, stick it to him a little bit before they kick him to the curb. Hey, we put up with your nonsense for 2 years. You asked for we gave you all the receivers and all the linemen. We did everything that you wanted. We ran the offense that we didn't go under. Like, we just did what you wanted, and we're tired of it. You didn't show us respect. Now we got the hammer, and now we embarrass you. Again, I wouldn't do that, but at least I could understand that on a visceral human level. The thought that there was any sort of predetermined malice or, I'm going to get you, I'm going to make you look bad from Muji and Glenn is patently ridiculous. It's offensive. It's idiotic. It is not possible. It is not true. Certainly not to the extent that Rodgers depicted today with Pat McAfee. I'm not buying it at all. I'm just not. I'm not.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they knew going into that he, despite the fact that, he doesn't really use social media and he does all this stuff where it's like, oh, I don't pay attention to the outside. They knew very well going into that, this guy has unlimited reign to go on this show. That's a national show that everybody pays attention to, that has any sort of interest in Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They knew that story would get out if they did that. So it would just be a very bizarre situation to be like, we know exactly how you're going to portray us on this show. If we do exactly what we're doing, it would be crazy for us to do that. Like, it's not like you're going to never tell anybody and go to your grave with this story and, maybe put it on some random podcast that nobody knows about. But going on a national show that everybody who knows anything about the Jets or anything about sports these days is watching, that's just a crazy move. Just if you're just thinking logically.
So. Again, when you're hearing it in real time, because I think we got the quotes around 1:45. Me and Sal wrap up at 2, as you know. So my producer Hoff, and he's grinding, he's listening to it, he's jotting stuff down. But by the time we flipped I think the next show probably had it. But by the time we could have turned around the audio, the show would have been over. So I would rather, and he did a good job, Hoff, extrapolate what's being said, translate it to us, let us know what the hell's going on. And he did. And my reaction was similar to this, but the more I think about this, the more I'm annoyed. Because it's a real bad early shadow. That's kind of, and I think it's unfair, and I think it's inaccurate. That's cast upon the new Jets regime. Listen, here's what we know about Aaron Rodgers. He is highly intelligent. Now, sometimes I think he might be too intelligent for his own good, but he is a well-read, even if you don't agree with all of his thoughts and theories and findings, which I don't. I agree with some of them, some I don't, but I do think he's a very smart person. But I think his biggest problem is that he's also very manipulative. And I think he has a very hard time with closure. And I think this was one last way to kind of twist the knife in the Jets, because he didn't like the way it went, certainly didn't like the way it finished, didn't like being kicked to the curb, which he was. And this is his recreation. And now, or he recreated this in his mind the way I believe it went down. I don't know for sure. But I'm saying into a hot mic that I don't believe him with this, not to this extent. There's no way. And now he can package it and present it in his own way that either soften the blows, the blow, or makes him look better, or makes him feel better, or a little piece of all those emotions. I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. But that's a real damaging portrayal of two men who are trying to stabilize the grossest franchise in pro sports. And he's not doing them any favors. I don't need him to do them any favors because he doesn't owe them anything. They owe him some money. They'll pay it. That's it. There's no goodwill. You could be big boy, shake hands, move on. He doesn't have a lot of equity here. Didn't win a lot of games. Wasn't here for very long. Didn't play particularly great most of the time. But to do this and take a torch like a flame-throwing torch, one last shot at the Jets building. That's where I'm going to rise up and I'm going to defend the Jets. And I think too often when you defend the Jets, you're really barking up the wrong tree because generally the Jets are wrong. But it's not that I choose, which I guess I do. I just refuse to believe that Aaron Glenn and Muji are either this mean-spirited, this dumb, or this obtuse. I'm not buying it. So Rodgers, I don't really talk like this. Get the Jets out of your mouth. I don't want to hear it anymore, dude. I don't want to hear Aaron Rodgers talk about the Jets anymore. Go on a retreat, go play for the Steelers, retire, deal with the breakup. On a serious note, I do hope everything's okay with his family. He said he's got some stuff going on. We all have that stuff. It's called real life. It's the real world. And again, I do like Aaron, but this makes me like him less. Because I think it's reckless and I think it's wildly inaccurate. And to move on, by the way, look, so I got a little toy here. I'm like, am I going to put this? I don't know where to put it. Can you see behind me? Can you let me see? I might have to move the microphone here. All right, you see that?
Oh yeah, there you go.
I got that. Yeah. Well, hey, there's the spike. What else we got there? I'm not a genius. Spygate, foot fetish, the wreck stuff. Spike game, kissing Belichick's rings. It's old, right? And I'm like, yeah. I saw it laying around. They were going to throw it in the trash today, WFAN. Yeah. And it was still wrapped up. Like it would never been unpackaged. I'm like, all right, I could do something with that. I got to find a way somewhere to hang it here. But I almost didn't want to put it out there because, again, if you're new, and I want your opinion on this, Ev, if you're new to the Unkillable podcast, go and Google, find it on YouTube, BT Jets rant, Unkillable. That's where this all was spawned from. And it was my reaction the day after Rodgers got hurt. And it was my refusal to, not that I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl because I knew they weren't when he went down, but it's my refusal to buy into the perpetual, lifelong terminal fate that a lot of, and I love Joe Beningo, but Joe's one of those guys who thinks it's going to be bad forever. I'm not that guy. I slant more positively. So this thing behind me illuminates many of the dark periods. Do you think it is a conflict for the core values of the Unkillable podcast? I do need you to weigh in on this.
Now, I think it can go two ways, but the way I'm looking at it, because maybe I'm also in the optimistic route, is I think you could say all this happened to me since I've been a fan. I'm still riding strong.
That's what I'm talking about.
We've had 9 trillion quarterbacks. We've had 900 failures, and I'm still thinking that Justin Fields is going to lead us to the postseason this year.
There we go.
So
There we go.
I still think Membu or whoever we get in the draft is going to be, the bookend with Fashanu, and we're gonna
think
get
that.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So there you go.
If we get Warren, if we get the tight end, he's going to be better than the kid for the Raiders from Brock. He's going to be better than Brock Bowers. Yes,
there you go.
You know what? That is a very wise interpretation of that. I agree with you. Very sage, very savvy beyond your youthful years here. That's a good thought. That's a good read. That's why you're my producer. I'm going to keep it. And it's like my way of going like this to Jets history. Get lost. I can't say what I want to say because my kids are there. Get lost. Okay. You see this sign right there. That's what you could do with that sign. That's what you can do with that sign. So it's like a mock of the Jets history. You know what I mean? And hopefully eventually, the real one behind me, the name of the jersey, hopefully eventually that wins out. All right. So you know where I stand on the Rodgers real fast. So number 7, and again, we'll get more name specific leading up to the draft, but I love this position for the Jets. I really do. Now, there's a thought Shador is going to drop. I don't think the Giants take him. Listen, I think it's going to be Cam Ward. I think it's going to be Travis Hunter. I think it's going to be Abdul Carter for the Giants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You probably go O-lineman. They've got their quarterbacks. 6 is going to be interesting. Maybe running back. Even if Shador Sanders drops to 7, there is no way I'm drafting him. Would you?
No, because I feel like with the new era in here and with Rodgers now out the door, even though we both respect him, it's like you got to start fresh and you got to start building without the just like unnecessary, crazy publicity that's going to come with him. Like Colorado's already retiring his number. I think he had a pretty average career there. So it's like there's just all the stuff that's coming with him. And it's just like you got to rebuild a little bit, and not rebuild, but you got to get better kind of in the shadows a little bit and then come out of it. And then it's like, bam,
you got to get quiet now. You got to get quiet. Okay. I agree because I don't think he's that good. I'm not saying he can't. He's probably going to start. He could be okay. I don't think he's worth it. But from a talent perspective, he's got average arm talent, average athlete. Sanders, Deion's son, he's not running a 3.4 40. He's just not. I mean, he don't move like that. He's not big. So I could give you football reasons why I would not take him at 7. But if you do, maybe the Jets disagree. If they do think he's that guy, do you still not take him because of the potential noise? Or do you say talent wins out? A little trickier.
Yeah, it's definitely a little trickier. I don't know, because it becomes one of those, it's so quickly when you draft a quarterback.
Yep.
Like every team has this like crazy like dream scenario where it's like, we're going to have this guy play for a year. We're going to draft the guy. Nobody's going to call for the guy we drafted. They're just going to let him develop, let him watch. It never happens. I can't remember the last time where, obviously, like you got the Mahomes situation.
Well, Mahomes,
Mahomes, but it's just so many times, like Kirk Cousins with the Falcons and then Penix, where it's like, we're going to let Kirk take over this year. He's going to lead us to destiny. Then he's going to go his separate ways. Then Penix is going to easily come in. I feel like you're drafting Sanders and automatically it's going to be like, well, Fields has stunk. He hasn't performed in 2 places. Put your door in the field. He had 1 bad game for the Jets, So that's going to become the narrative so quickly. It's just crazy.
All right, so we're on the same page. All right, so let me wrap it up here. Good job tonight, Ev. Very good job. Good contributions. I love it. For years, and I've fallen. By the way, look at the shirt. How about that? Yeah, we got a bunch of these here. I'll tell you where you guys could get them, but I won't do it now. But we're gonna get those out there as well. So for years, I fell prey to the fantasy football mentality. Got to get the wide receiver. Got to get the tight end. The Jets never have a tight end, so that was actually a fair addressing of needs in my opinion from my part. But I'm done with that, man. I have finally learned. I've always known this, but I'm finally applying it to my team. It's funny. I apply it to every other team but my team. No more. Lift up the hood of this Jets car. All right. And what I see suddenly is a pretty good offensive line that's got one little opening on the right side. And Membu, the kid from Missouri, who is an absolute truck, who can move, who, by the way, played the right side in college. It's not like you're taking a left tackle and kicking him to the right because you got an older left tackle, and then maybe at some point when he phases out, you put him back to the left side. No, I love the idea, all right, of starting with Fashanu, who graded out tremendously. He's the real deal. You know right away if you're good or you're not. Yeah, and by the way, I think he's got a chance to be terrific. Like, Pro Bowl, eventually All Pro good. They crushed that pick. And I wanted Brock Bowers, I admit, but Olu Fashanu is an absolute stud. They've got just about 80% of a functional, and I think at this point, trending in the direction of an above average offensive line. You plug in Membu with the right side, and now all of a sudden you have Justin Fields. And again, I'm under no illusion he's going to be a superstar, but if they can run the ball, which he can, and then set up play action, all right, maybe take a tight end in round 2. These are all things we'll jump back into early next week here. But I think that that's the play. I think that too often, like the Jets, they get this car. They're like, let me get the shiny rims. Let me get the sweet tinted windows. Let me get the sweet, music. Okay, what's the engine like, dude? I mean, is it going to break down? And most times, well, it always breaks down. I mean, most times it always does. So I am bypassing the aesthetics of the car, and I'm building it the right way. I need the engine to fire. All right. I need the brakes to work. I'm not really a car guy, so that's pretty much where I can, I'm going to have to end the under the hood references there. I guess I put in the windshield wiper stuff myself, the fluids that I can do, and that I do. But you know what I'm saying? You've just got to have the guts of a team, a foundation, because that's, that gives you a chance to be at least competitive. And I also know, and some people do say this, well, all right, that's all well and good, but you still got to eventually find a quarterback. Understood. Don't you think it's easier to find the quarterback? Like, I don't know, the Niners with Purdy and Jalen Hurts, round 2 for the Eagles, Super Bowl champion, when you've got a kick-ass offensive line that makes the transition easier. So again, I think Justin Fields will be good. He'll be okay. And I think they'll run the ball. And if they don't trade Brees, which I don't think they will run it a lot, probably 35, 40 times a game, including Fields' 7 or 8, 9 rushes a game. And whenever they draft a quarterback, maybe it's in round 2, maybe it's in round 4, maybe it's next year, earlier, whatever it might be, now it could be more of a plug and play thing. And that's how you advance this thing. So I think the Jets are in a great spot. I think their phone's going to be ringing. Derek Carr situation, obviously the Saints, with Shador, if the Jets play this right, maybe there's a way to, navigate that and get some draft equity and still get one of the 2 or 3 players that you really covet, that you have boarded up in a premium spot on your draft board. So I just think it's going to be not an exciting night, because I do think it's going to be a trench player, but I think it's going to be a foundational type of player that we'll look back on, similar to Bricken with Mangold coming out of Ohio State, where when you start to eventually look at the like, when did the renaissance of the Jets start? When did the rise begin? Well, I think it began with the hiring of Aaron Glenn, and I think it will be further accelerated by bringing in an offensive lineman and doing it the way that you're not going to get his jersey, but you know what? You're going to enjoy seeing some sustained drives on Sundays, right? You're going to enjoy seeing that 1 yard, whether it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, or, like, do you go for it? Do you punt? I mean, how much confidence have we had in the Jets to get that yard over the years? None. And we didn't even have confidence for them to stop the opponent for the 1 yard, which is why they stink. But now, if it's Membu or one of those guys, or it's behind Olu on the left side, now you get that yard. Move the sticks. Tick, 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 tick. Time ticks. And now you possess the ball a little bit more. When you possess the ball more, you don't need 30 points, because they're not going to be that kind of an offense to win. Ball control. It's how you do it. And I think they're thinking that. I don't know for sure. But right now, I am all about the right tackle at number 7. So there you go. All right. Episode number 29. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I was going to do more draft tonight, but once the Rodgers stuff dropped, I'm like, I got to get into this. And if you just, the brief encapsulation here, I like Rodgers. I'm not buying it. I think it's a creation in his mind to make himself feel better, take a dig at the Jets. What are the other? Maybe a little bit of both. And Jets don't even respond. Do not volley back. It will die by the weekend. I promise you. Get to the draft and let's keep this thing moving. So, hey, spread the word. Get it to your friends. Spotify, Apple, WFAN, YouTube. You can always find the stuff here, the shorts, the whole segment. Great job by my guy, Evan. And I will see you guys tomorrow on the Fan at 10 here in New York City. And I'll catch you next week on the pod right here on Unkillable. See ya.